Windsor here, and welcome to the Groove Guru podcast. And if you enjoy these conversations and reflections, I invite you to subscribe to the Groove Guru podcast on Apple and Spotify, and also check out my YouTube channel, Windsor Drums, and it genuinely helps get this out to more people. And today I want to explore something that's been quietly running in the background of my life for years and only recently landed in a way that feels much more complete. And it's the question, how much of my life am I really doing? And how much of it is simply happening through me? And you probably know those moments. It could be in drumming, speaking, writing, or just going about your day when things feel effortless. You know, there's no overthinking and struggling and endless debate about things. It just happens, and there's no sense of me pushing it along. Something deeper is running the show. And recently on tour with Hugh Cornwell, I had one of the clearest experiences of this that I've ever experienced. And it was the night that the ceiling started leaking. And we were at a theatre setting up for sound check. And when we arrived at the venue, I noticed there was a couple of buckets on stage and a couple of drips of water coming from the ceiling. And I didn't think much of it. I just got on with setting up the equipment. But as the setup continued and the rain outside, because it was raining quite heavily, as that continued, those drips turned into more of a full-on shower inside the venue. I thought, oh, how nice of them to provide a water feature to complement the lights. And so it was proper, it was indoor rain, and eventually the venue manager was called to go and get the appropriate person with authority to decide whether or not the show would be cancelled or not. So we all waited for a bit. And here's the weird thing though. Before that person came and before that decision was ever made to cancel the show, I suddenly found myself packing down my drum kit. You know, no thinking about it. There was no decision. There was no, what should I do? Is this going to be cancelled or not? There was just doing. And what was quite remarkable was I caught myself in real time. I literally said out loud, okay, I've started breaking down my drums. The venue hasn't even called the show yet. I didn't choose to do this. There's no free will. The words came out of my mouth. And that landed so deeply that I've been unpacking it ever since. And here's what I'm seeing is that I didn't decide to pack down. The action simply arose and the body followed. And I'm seeing that something far more deeper and more fundamental was and is moving things. There's the notion in many spiritual traditions that there is no separate doer. And what I'm seeing about that, it's the idea that I, or the body mind as I can sometimes identify, chooses my actions. And that's just that. That's an idea. It's a thought. And thought is illusory. It's an illusion. And it's thought that creates the sense of me and our inner dialogue about things. It could be, I need to sort my life out and I need to control this situation. I need to do it all myself. I need to figure out what to do. I need to choose the next steps and decide that. But, you know, just reflecting on it, all of those statements are made of thought, which is imaginary. We make it up. And underneath all of that, something is living and moving the body, always. And the way that it can show up is that, life is just happening, and thought, thought takes credit afterwards. Oh, I did that. I made that decision. And we can get lost in the illusion of that. But it's just like, if you imagine and consider your body, that it's being breathed. Breathing is just happening. Your digestion is just happening. When you fall asleep, that it just happens when it happens. And it's not a personal me that's making that happen. It's a deeper intelligence. And in the 3 principles, Sid Banks, he would refer to this as mind, the one universal intelligence behind life, in formless and form. The one intelligence. And that space is that in which everything arises from and in. And reflecting on the subject a bit more, the clearest way I can articulate it is that it's not Windsor doing life, it's life expressing itself through Windsor. Okay? And if you're listening to this, your name, it's not you doing life, it's life expressing itself through the body that you inhabit. And when you see this, beyond it just being a good idea, it takes an unbelievable amount of weight off your mind, of pressure off your mind, because you start noticing that when you wake up to this space of who you really are, you can see that things you do, like there can be drumming, conversations, your impulses, your moods, your decision to call someone or laugh or anything. It's all just happening spontaneously and not coming from a personal you. It's all coming from the bigger you, the one, the universal mind. Now, as an experiment with this, Sid Banks would always say that you are looking for is only ever one thought away. Like, what you're looking for in an assert, which we've explored before, that we're all really looking for that sense of peace, that happiness, that contentment, that sense of grounding, that's already here. Not later when you've solved all your problems, but right here and right now. And it's that space that is you before thought names it and makes a story up about it, okay? And what happened with Sid Banks that was so incredibly profound in his own life and has went on to change the field of psychology was that Sid had the realization that all of his insecurity, and he was really, really quite an insecure person the vast majority of his life. Sid's insight was that all of his insecurity was coming from thought. And when he saw that and saw through the illusion of thought, as he described it, his whole world exploded with clarity. He couldn't sleep for 3 days and 3 nights when it first happened. It was quite incredible. As an experiment looking in the direction of this space, the next time you notice a feeling that you're feeling, pause and just look at it before you start making up a story about it, before your thoughts about it. And whenever you notice a feeling, just let it be there. Just notice that there's a simple fact of being here and now. That space before there's a description of it in your head. Okay? And when you presence this space or realize the presence of this space, see if you can notice that actions are already happening. Doing is happening. The body is breathing. You're not doing that. The body's just breathing. The heart's beating. Your food is being digested. When you need to go to the bathroom, you just get up and go. There's an email that you send. There's, if you've got to travel somewhere, you go there, you buy the train ticket, you drive the car, you answer the phone, you go to sleep when you're tired. And it's not because it's a separate you, a me that's doing it. It's because life is unfolding through the body spontaneously. And when you get a sense of that and it starts to land, then something really beautiful starts to happen, is that you stop trying to control everything and wrestle everything to the ground with your thinking. And what shows up instead is much more clarity, more ease, the natural flow that we're all born with. There's a creativity, a sense of peace and lightness, and also resilience that's just happening that you don't need to make happen. And it's when the falsehood of I need to control this, the false controller, when that dissolves, then there's space for the real intelligence that's running the show to come through and live you. And a key distinction with this and this kind of subject matter is that this notion of there is no doer, that does not equal passivity. Okay? Because, it can be misunderstood quite a bit. When I first heard this, and I've heard a lot of people ask these kind of questions, that, okay, so you're saying there is no free will, then people can get despondent about it and think, oh, well, what's the point then? Does nothing really matter? Will I just end up sitting on the sofa, the couch, depending on what you call it, all day? But here's the twist on it, is that the absence of a personal doer doesn't mean there's no motivation. It removes the strain and thought-created noise that we can create and reveals a much deeper drive. Because when you think about it, the best drumming you've ever done, or if you play an instrument, your best playing it wasn't you doing it. It was flow. It's like the best drumming that Windsor's ever done. It's like he wasn't there. It just flowed through. The other guy showed up, as I like to call it. And, the best decisions you've made just come from clarity and not effort. There's just a simple knowing of what to do. The best conversations are not rehearsed. They just unfold. And even this podcast, I got like a download that just came through me and some key points that I wanted to say. It effortlessly showed up. So when we start to see that there is no doer, it doesn't kill action. It doesn't stop action being made. It stops the unnecessary suffering around action. Okay? It dissolves the over managing things, overthinking, getting caught up in thoughts so much, ruminating, being afraid of fucking it up. And it gets rid of that thought created pressure and reveals much more. There's a fluidity of life. There's a natural creativity and spontaneity, courage to say the thing, just this effortless execution without the stress. And what's at the heart of all of this? It's your ability to sense what is aware of your experience right now. Because that's what I assert is the real you, not the thoughts and the reactions and the emotions and the striving, but the awareness that all experience arises in, the one that's it's never needed to control life in the first place. It's just living itself. And to ground this a bit, I'll say, you're not here to control life. You're here to be life's expression. And when you rest here, life becomes infinitely simpler. And you see that freedom you have sought, that changes to the fact that you realize that you already are free. You always were free. You always will be. Sometimes there can just be thoughts in the way that obscure that fact. And when you realize that nature of your freedom, you see that it never was about your personal willpower and trying to hold all of life together with your thinking, and then that creates the doing. No, it's that life provides a natural impulse and the body follows. And sometimes thought tries to take credit for that, but hopefully we're starting to see through that a bit now. And when life does create those impulses that the body follows, you get to enjoy the ride and the unfolding of it. So I hope this one serves to point you to that freedom that's already here in your inner core, in your heart of hearts. That space before there's any thought about it. And if you find this helpful, please, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone that may find it helpful. And for now, have fun. Enjoy the unfolding, and I'll speak with you soon.